Having me. I'm pretty excited to be here. Basically, what I'm gonna, well, before I start anything, I was particularly interested in Carl's talk because I think about 2006 I started using Unity, and I had already been doing data visualization work at the University of Dundee for a good period of time as an actual researcher. And it didn't take me very long to realize that Unity was something quite special in the world of game development. There had been, I don't know if any of the folks who have been around the industry for a while remember what it was like 10 or 15 years ago to do game development. It was not this. It was something entirely different. And the individuals who were capable of making a game were a very special breed of person. And we see today that the creativity and the ability of people to create these kinds of games has really, really changed. And that's been my experience with our program at the Glasgow University at GSA, and I think that is why we are really excited to be here, because this fits very well into what we've been doing up to now. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm going to do, it's a very short 5-minute talk. I'm going to basically talk a little bit about what the GSA is. There's probably a couple of you who already know. But for those of you who don't, I will give you a bit of a brief review. And then I'm going to talk about the department that I work in is the School of Simulation and Visualization. We've actually been around for a bit longer in another form, but most recently we switched to that to more accurately represent what we're doing.
That is a really cool department name.
It is quite cool. We have had a couple of emails sent to us, which is the School of Stimulation and Visualization. That is not who we are, just so that you know. But yeah, should have thought of that before, but oh well. Yeah, so I'll give you a bit of a brief about who we are and what we do, and then I'll show you some examples of some of our student work and some of our other work as well in research and commercial. So this is who we are. We've been around for quite a long time. I don't know who here is from London College, or if there's anybody here who's from the London area, but we've actually been an art school longer than the Royal Academy here in London, which I did not know until recently, and have officially became a school in 18 something or other and all that sort of stuff. We have been doing the art scene for quite a long time, and we've got a pretty good reputation worldwide as a premier institute for art. But people don't think technology when they think art, which I think is interesting, that we sort of had innovation, a school of innovation around for a while, and that's recently changed as well to so more accurately represent what they do. But this idea of how you get art and technology together is actually a pretty old story for the games industry. That is essentially what we're doing. And I think now it's matured enough that you're starting to see that progress into other areas as well. So I think that's quite interesting. We've got about 2,500 students, I think, so we're not a bad-sized college. We still consider ourselves a small college. I think Scotland government thinks of it that way as well. But we're doing quite well for ourselves, so we can't really complain, right? We have those 5 schools. The one that I work at is the one at the bottom. As an official school, we've actually only been around for a couple of years. This is, we were a digital design college before or something like that, right? So we weren't quite teaching the full breadth of the academic structure. We were only doing master's classes, and that's basically when I came in. 2012, I think, was when I started working here. But in the time that we've been going forward since then, we've sort of realized and recognized the need to actually start people at a much earlier age. So a lot of the work that we've been doing has been at the master's level, and now we're doing undergrad programs as well. Okay. Right, so SimViz. Basically, this is the school that I work at. We've been not actually up until recently, we've mostly been concentrating on XR, VR, AR, that sort of thing. It's been quite a big deal for us. We sort of recognized a good number of years ago that this was an area of expanding influence in the world. I think if you take a look at the stats, something like $2.3 billion were invested in 2016. These kind of go along with Melissa's stats here. And if you take a look at today, that's up to about 700 million in that field. So that's like a 300% growth in the span of, what, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year? It's ridiculously high, right? So these numbers that Melissa were talking about seem ridiculously crazy, but that's actually what is happening here. So we were lucky that we got in on this very early. In 2015, we were already doing, 2012, we were already looking at this stuff. So we were quite lucky to sort of see what was happening in the world quite some time ago, right? That's not bad. We were quite lucky. The school is basically split up into a number of areas. We have, of course, all of our teaching that's going on. We also have what you would expect in most colleges, research, and then we also have a in-house commercial team that does quite a bit of work. In fact, this image that you're looking at right now is a cloud point taken from the now infamous fire at the Macintosh building in Glasgow. Basically, after that fire went in, the school took our digital archiving historical team, which is responsible for teaching one of our classes in heritage visualization, sent them into that building to capture as much of that building that was possible. In fact, after the second fire that happened, I don't know if everyone knows this story, but there was a second fire in this building. Much of this was actually lost, and now the data that our historical team from Simviz has collected is actually some of the only data that exists of some of these artifacts that have been lost. So, very good example of how that the Simviz experience has really impacted and interfaced with real-world scenarios. Right, so we have a mixture of skill sets: research, academic, teaching, commercial work. It's always been important for us to make this connection between the arts and sciences, and a lot of our projects are not just games, but quite often they're serious games or games that interface with healthcare or physics or STEM or anatomy, lots of different aspects, historical stuff as well, as you can see from that picture. So we've actually got a bit of a different look at the Unity experience than I think a lot of people have in the past. Right. Right. So as I said, combining digital work with health and well-being, art and culture, an emphasis on this idea of critical theory, which is something that is one of these key skills that Melissa pointed out earlier, right? A lot of contact with industry. We're actually located right in the Creative Clyde area, which is just over by the Glasgow Science Centre. I don't know if you've ever been here, but this area is basically surrounded by like the BBC. The building that we work in is called the Hub, which is essentially a tech building full of entrepreneurs in the tech industry. SETV is there, the Science Center, which we usually have 1 or 2 students every year doing projects for the Science Center. So we're actually quite involved in that local field. We do a lot of things that are, very relevant to what is happening in the city of Glasgow, which is quite nice. It's kind of a ethos, I think, for the GSA in general. We really do think of ourselves as playing an important role in the culture of our city, and definitely, I think, Simviz takes that ethos on board quite a lot, which is nice. Right, so the courses that we teach, these top 2, which are the undergrads that I'm going to talk about in a minute, are the fairly new courses that we've just started teaching. There's one for immersive systems and another one for sound and moving images. These master's courses are the courses that I've been teaching there since 2012. Medical visualization is actually an interesting course that has Unity for 3 months of the year at the beginning of the year. Then those students go over to Glasgow University and do real anatomy. They're actually looking at cadaveric work and taking that apart and understanding how the body actually works. And then they come back to us for 3 months to do a dissertation that combines those two things together to create something representative of their knowledge that they've gained over the last year. Heritage is very, very similar. There's a lot of archival work that's involved here. They'll go off to a historical site somewhere in the world. They will collect data on that site and then bring that back, look at curating that data and turning that into some sort of visualization, right? Serious games, games in virtual reality. This is actually a serious games course. So that as well is looking at how the idea of VR and games can be used to provide something more than just an entertaining experience, but something with meaning, right? And of course, we do PhDs that are related to these fields as well as our commercial work. So, where does Unity fit into this? Everywhere. We have been using Unity in every single one of these projects. Even our sound and moving images one, they take specific Unity classes that teach them about how to make interactive audio for interactive experiences, and we do that all in Unity. Now, just to put that in perspective, if you take a student who is coming from a medical background, their programming knowledge is probably zero. And I have to get them to a stage where they can produce their first meaningful Unity application in 3 months' time. That is quite an accomplishment, and definitely 20 years ago would have been impossible to do. I mean, you really have to have a very fortunate student who could sit down and get a grasp of C++ and build a robust application in a 3-month period. It would be quite difficult to do, I think. Unity has made that very, very possible for us, and that is one of the reasons I fell in love with Unity in 2006, and why I think so many of my students, we actually have the highest, all the colleges get rated on how they're doing and who loves the colleges. We have the highest rating in the GSA, and we have one of the highest ratings in Scotland for programs that students love. And that's because they're able to bring their creations to life. And it's in a field that they feel is relevant. And we're talking about the student program here at Unity and all of the interest that the student bodies have in Unity. It is definitely a real thing that I see every day in my students. So many of my students come into my program knowing about Unity or having played with Unity prior to that, and that is what's, in some cases, driven them to come to this specific course. Right, so that said, let's talk a little bit about some of the work that we have done, and I'm just going to basically show you some of the student examples, and then I've got a couple of our commercial examples as well. These are typically programs that I've done in combination with some of the university or in a research capacity as well. So. Of that, only those last two shots were some of our commercial research projects. The rest of that were student projects, and about 50% of that were student projects that were completed probably within 3 months, maybe 6-month period, but certainly not by the end of their dissertation, which is a full-year dissertation. So you're looking at work there for students who've probably never done coding before and are able to actually produce meaningful work at a pretty short period of time. So this is, if I can get it, is another look at that one of those last two projects. This is the Definitive Human project. I don't know if anyone here has heard of this. This was actually done quite a long time ago, probably 2015, and this was done in Unity 5, way back when. This is a collaborative project, again, with the GSA anatomy department, where our commercial team was going and taking a look and building a accurate 3D model of a human body. Not as in taking digital slices and recreating the DICOM data sets, but actually having an artist go in, look at that material, see what exactly that is, and then reproducing that in a 3D model. So this was quite a few years of work, obviously. What's kind of cool about this application, entirely done in Unity, is both a desktop application and a VR app. So not only can you sit there and look at it on your desktop, but if you want to, you can do things like this, right? Actually look at the human body, take it apart by pieces, really get almost a tangible experience of what that will look like. And if you've never seen this, it's a pretty interesting experience. We used to have this running on our massive, we had an IMAX theater in our studio. That's gone now because we're expanding and making more room for students. Unfortunately, I really like that theater. But when we had that, we used to have that in 3D, where you could wear 3D glasses and actually look at this model in a 2-story tall theater experience. It was pretty amazing. This second piece of work here is a project just recently finished as a good example of something that completely falls outside of the realm of the heritage work or the medical work, and this is the decommissioning of a nuclear reactor here in Scotland, or here in the UK. So this is a training tool, basically. The idea here is that this facility won't have power to it by the time they have to send people in to do certain parts of work. So it'll entirely be in the dark. And the idea is they created a VR experience of what that space will look like, so that people can actually wear the equipment and get a feel for the building and know what they're supposed to be doing before they go in. Of course, the contact time in this building has to be minimized as much as possible. So this is a great way for the people going in there to actually get a feel for what has to happen inside that building before they get there, right? Good examples. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about our immersive systems design program. This is one of the 2 undergrad programs that we currently run. This is basically a new course for us that we've only been running for a couple of years. We're now in year 2. It's pretty exciting, and it's been working really, really well. We've taken a definite different approach to the idea of what you might consider a traditional gaming course. It is a technology-focused course, of course, but we really wanted to make a strong foundation in art, combining the ideas of studio-based learning with critical thinking, which are super important skills in this particular kind of industry. We're using fairly relevant tool sets that are up to date, 3ds Max, ZBrush, and of course Unity. We're not using Unreal, which is interesting. We reviewed it, but just found it wasn't the right tool for us, right? There's a lot of contact with instructors to the point that the college actually complains that we spend too much time with contact with our students, because we really like to be with them, helping them solve their problems. That's the way industry works. Why shouldn't we represent that as well? And we do. And it's really about the students being able to understand that critical connection between technology and the creative aspects of life and how they can combine those things together. So the program is designed around this sort of a pathway where in year 1, they get an equal balance of art and technology, and they can decide which one they're interested in most. Do they want to become more of a technical artist, for example, or a pure coder? And then they can decide as they go through the years to refine themselves down one of those paths. So as they go further and further into this program, they become more and more specialized one way or another, but they still get some aspect of the actual other side of the coin, so to speak, at all aspects of the program. So they're still getting that, and they get to decide which one they want to choose from. And that's worked really well for us so far. I think, we'll see how this works in year three and year four as we go forward with the program, how that turns out, but I think we're getting a good feel for it right now. Some of the things you might expect them to do kind of look like this, right? Augmented VR, physical computing, 3D animation. I think it's important to say that this course doesn't just concentrate on Unity per se. There's quite a bit of other stuff that goes on as well, like physical computing aspects. The BDES in sound for moving image is very, very similar. They're really concentrated on this idea of how sound interfaces with things like interactive applications or movies and so forth. This is a third-year entry program, so normally they would have to be doing something else that's in the relevant field for 2 years before they move into the program. We do sort of offer this now going into the third year of our other program for undergrad, but it's new for us, so we haven't quite done it yet, right? And kind of a very similar sort of setup. I don't really want to spend too much more time doing this because I think I'm just about overdue. Right, and as I said, it kind of looks at that connection between sound and the moving picture. Right, similar sorts of projects, these are a bit more on the audio side, of course, right? Right, so if you want to know more, by all means, give me a call. My email's at the beginning of this, I think, but we do have UCAS and upcoming shows for the students. If they want to come check us out, they're more than welcome to.